Right. So we are starting with with the First Ecumenical Council, and when we think about this again, we take it for granted. Like Ecumenical Council is a known word, known term. The con the I would like to say the council is known. We all kind of take it for granted that there are councils in church. We all take it for granted that there are ecumenical councils in the church. But if you think about the first ecumenical council, right, you will see that 325, again, we kind of just remember this, we memorize those dates in the seminary. But if we really need history to have some hindsight for to understand significance of the event, to understand mindset of people who adopted canons. It's 20 years after Holy Emperor Constantine became a leader, right? So it was significant anniversary to celebrate this. And for the first time ever, Christian bishops were invited to dine with an emperor. And it was probably people who lived in the Soviet Union, right? And when uh, President Gorbachev received Patriarch Pimen, that was very, very big landmark in a change. And then Church received legal rights in 1991. And similar thing was in this event. It was a Roman imperial event, even by the fact that Emperor Constantine was still acting in his capacity as Pontifex Maximus, as the chief priest of the empire. He wasn't a Christian yet. He wasn't a Christian yet at this council. I mean, he definitely was a catechumen by his by all what he has done for the church, but he wasn't baptized. So Emperor Constantine presided at this council, and as with many other documents, including Edict of Milan, we don't have an original. We don't have whole acts of the council. We have documents connected with this, but we have canons, but we don't really have whole proceedings, right, with the Council of Nicaea. And Nicaea, or like victorious city, right, where they assembled. And uh, this assembly was also another thing of the Ecumenical Council. It was funded with public funds, right? They went. And what else has to be said, right? That issues about theology, they were very significant. And to what extent non-scriptural terminology can be utilized. And I'm referring to homoousion, the whole idea of ousia or substance. It wasn't something that had a strong point of reference in scripture. And because it was not word in the scripture, right, there were a lot of suspicions regarding the usage of this term homoousios, right? That's единосущный, of the same ousia. And then this term was offered by, I think he's Saint Osios of Corduba, right? I think he's a saint, right?
I believe so.
Right. So, and he offered this term, but then, of course, later on, discussion started. What exactly? What's the same essence? What is the same essence? What is to be of the same essence? What essence is? So, what do you really mean, sort of? So that's a nice thing about church fathers, that they lived with those things. They really, it was for them very, very, how to say, very, very topical. It's not like, I don't care. I mean, why we not? I don't care. No, they didn't have this lukewarm attitude. So, and this is content, right? We are seeing right now that 325 Constantinople wasn't really uh, it's still just a very new kid on the block, basically, Constantinople, right? So major old players, Antioch, Alexandria, the previous councils took place in Antioch and Ancyra, which is modern day Ankara, the capital of Turkey. There were two councils that already preceded in the 4th century, the First Ecumenical Council. So a major player was Alexandria, right? Major player. That's where all theological thought took place, and that's where theology was done. That's where somebody from whom all fathers came out taught in the 3rd century, and this person, of course, was Origen. And the first canon, therefore, peculiarly starts with something that you might see as a connection with what I've been saying. I hope you're able to follow along. Okay, the canon of the 318 fathers gathered at Nicea under the consulate of the illustrious Paulinus and Julian in the year 536 of the Alexandrian era, the 19th of the month of Decius, the 13th day of the calends of July. Canon 1. If anyone has been maimed by doctors at the time of an illness, or has been castrated by barbarians, let him remain a cleric. But if anyone already been a cleric and in good health castrates himself, he must be excluded from the clergy, and in the future no such person shall be ordained. As it is obvious that what has been said above concerns those who act on their own volition, who have dared to castrate themselves, the ruling permits, therefore, those who have been made eunuchs by barbarians or by their masters to become clerics, if on the other grounds they are judged to be worthy. So, Brat Ivan Griznov, here is another point to what we've been talking about, because in Old Testament, a candidate, sort of priest's material, supposed to maintain physical integrity, because it's the same as offering a sacrifice. You cannot just bring something that is lean, something that is of sort quality. You really only can expect it to bring the best to make its sacrifice. So, and this iconic image of priesthood was also in Old Testament, right? And you now see how what we've talked about, superiority of spiritual matters over physical matters is expressed here, sort of rational, right? It's not just binding regulations. So what part of no you don't understand? That's it. It's written black and white. No, there is still always still reasoning based on situation. The same act, two persons are castrated, but one happened to be this way because it was done in his adolescent years, and another wanted to achieve apatheia, wanted to achieve the same condition as Hellenistic teachers, philosophers had, to be totally not buttered by any passions, by anything. So he decides to undergo the surgery in order to achieve nirvana, right? Do you follow me?
Yep.
Yep. Yes, Father.
So, and then this is no, right? Because according to Christian understanding, you have to struggle, you have to fight, right? So you have to deal with this. So right. But also it's a very loaded text. From the very beginning, it already gives us a lot of food for our thoughts, right? So as I mentioned, it sets up in an image of priest candidate that is expressed also in apostolic canons, right? That's also they are of Syrian origin, but they were in the use around the came in the use around the same time. That if your injury does not prevent you from whatever is expected from your office, let you be ordained, right? But this iconic image of priesthood is still with us very much. Sort of understanding that the person doesn't really have a finger or something, so bishop should not lay his hands on this person. And I'm witnessing because I have come across people who have this attitude. But at the same time, right, there is good explanation here. Let us actually so it's a short one. Let me read you what Archbishop. I haven't read Archbishop Peter Lulier's commentary, so it's also will be interesting for me. Let's see what Archbishop Pierre Lulier, who is a great canonist, this book used to be sold by your, depends where you are, friendly, or yeah, I should say friendly, from your friendly bookstore in Jordanville, New York, and it's a good investment. Okay, so I'm reading this commentary to see how to see canonists at work.
Oh, sorry, Father.
Yes, yes,
What book
okay.
was that you referenced?
Yes, it is the book called. Can you see this?
The Church of the
Yeah.
Ancient Councils. Okay.
I'm reading. First of all, we need to determine the meaning of certain terms used in this and the other canons of Nicea. We have translated the Greek expression entokliro exeta exetazomenon by being a cleric. The verb exetazo in the passive form here means to be reckoned as, to be registered as. This meaning was already attested in the classical period. As for the word clerus, it is a derivative clerikos, as well as their Latin counterparts, clerus and clericus. We encounter them from the 3rd century in the specific meaning of clergy and cleric. Concerning self-mutilation, let us call attention to what Zonaras has to say. The canon is aimed not only at those who have themselves perpetrated the act, but of course at those who have voluntarily submitted to such an operation. About the expression pepavse prosike, we can observe that the verb power is one of the forms used in the ancient canonical text to designate the action of deposing a cleric. The word canon, where it is related to a disciplinary ruling, as it is in this case, has the meaning for the fathers of Nicaea of a well-determined norm, regardless of how it got that way. Very soon in church parlance, the term took on a very precise meaning, It designated a legislative action being part of written law. According to what is stipulated in Canon 1 of Nicea, the fact of being a eunuch is not considered as an impediment ex de facto to become a cleric. On the contrary, it constitutes a permanent irregularity ex delicito for those who may have intentionally constrained themselves. The theory lying behind the decision adopted at Nicaea is clearly set out in the Canons of the Holy Apostles. Canon 22nd of this collection states that anyone who castrates himself, let him not become a cleric, because he is a murderer of himself and an enemy of the creation of God. Canon 23 declares, if a cleric castrates himself, let him be deposed because he is his own murderer. Did the fathers of Nicaea have concrete cases of their own time in view, or did they remember the controversy between Demetrius of Alexandria and the Palestinian bishops about the ordination of Origen? We can only offer hypotheses. Following Beveridge, it's an English canonist of the 17th century, it is often affirmed that the affair of Leontius was behind the promulgation of this particular canon. The Leontius, born in Phrygia and a cleric in Antioch, lived with a woman subintroducta by the name of Eustolia. Refusing to separate from her, he castrated himself, following which his bishop Eustathius deposed him. Despite this, the Emperor Constantine in 344 promoted him to be Bishop of Antioch. But in 325, Leontius was still a person too insignificant to have been himself the only cause of the promulgation of this canon. Without a doubt, there were at the time a certain number of analogous cases among Christians influenced by extreme currents of asceticism. St. Epiphanius mentions the Valesian sect where castration was systematically practiced. Was the ruling issued by Nicaea scrupulously observed? The above mentioned case of Leontius, who was raised to the episcopate despite such an impediment, does not prove anything because he was an Arian and he obviously rejected the legislation of Nicaea. We must call attention on the one hand to the civil laws severely banning castration, but on the other to the fact that they were often renewed. This shows that they were not very well applied. The fathers of the Second Council of 861 thought it good to recall the incapability of being a cleric and being a eunuch if it was a question of voluntary castration. Such a reminder led us suppose that the canons were not always carefully observed on this point. The end of the commentary. So it's sensible to also put this in the greater context of Constantinian transformation of the morals, because castration was fine thing during the Roman time, and it became something which would which would contradict Christian beliefs as it is expressed in apostolic canons. As you see that they very nicely, that's why I like apostolic canons a lot. They exactly unpacked you why it is bad, something that I talked in last class. They really explained you, not just you don't do this because it's what part of no you don't understand, but they explained you don't do this because it goes against very basic Christian precepts. So that is important here. And another thing that comes here to mind is veracity, plausibility, trust to the sources, because we know that Origen was castrated from Eusebius of Alexandria, of Caesarea. Eusebius of Caesarea is the founder of the Christian historiography. At the same time, Eusebius of Caesarea, who wrote Constantine's Vita, right, of course, was very, very close to Constantine. He also had to defend himself because there, at this time, accusations of Origen as inspirer, somebody who was a proto-Arian, because Arians would refer to Origen to back up their position, right? And in order also to defend Origen, right? Eusebius wrote about him. And here is also the question of his castration, that if Eusebius suggested that he was castrated, that he was somebody like his counterpart, somebody like the best teachers of Hellenistic schools, that he didn't have patience, that he reached the stage of apatheia, that's been without patience. So he hinted that Origen even castrated himself. But if you think about this whole surgery, it's one thing when it's preserved before somebody's puberty, and then when it's performed on an adult man, especially back then, it can be fatal. So it can be fatal. So I think Vladika, he might ask, unless you already talked about, he might more aware about more recent scholarship, whether or not Origen was castrated. But it's important for sources, because I think sources about Origen castrations are in Eusebius of Caesarea, and to what extent it was a fact, it is the question. So it's not really something that is topical, right? As for the matter of this canon, right? But it's topical to understand this council, because it's canon number one. Kind of one might think, didn't they have more pressing matters? But having said that, we think as modern people, right? Because it's not really an issue. We don't really sort of know people who are castrated. But back then, it was part of the reality, part of the council, part of the reality. Uh, and this council demonstrates importance of moral issues. They started right away with moral issues, with moral issues of its time. Okay. Uh, right. And by reading those canons, if we just approach them as individual pieces of legislation, it's not going to do us very much good. We will know the contents of the canons of this council, which is good, but we won't be able to understand times of this council. We won't be able to understand what church was living through. And I argue that it's equally important to knowing content of canons, to understand times of when this canon was adopted. And the second canon of this council demonstrates this, right? So I'm reading the second canon of the First Council of Nicea, the First Ecumenical Council. Whether by necessity or by the weight of human frailties, several things have come about contrary to general order of the Church. Thus, spiritual washing has been given, and along with this baptism, the episcopate of the priesthood has been given to men who have only been recently received from pagan life to the faith and have not been sufficiently instructed. It seems right and proper that such things not happen anymore. Thus men in effect must remain catechumens for a certain time, and after baptism submit to a still longer period of probation. The apostolic statement in this matter is very clear. You see, gents, how the norm has been built up, sort of apostolic canons already admitted as a very important authoritative legislation. Okay, the apostolic statement in this matter is very clear. Let him not be neophyte for fear that by pride he fall into judgment and into the trap of the devil. If during this probation period he is found to be guilty of some fault affecting his soul, and which is attested to by or 3 witnesses, let him be excluded from the clergy. If anyone acts contrary to this ordinance, as much as he opposes himself in that to the great council, he is in danger of being excluded from clergy. Okay, so now what they cite Apostolic Canon, right? And this canon somehow might be relevant to what we discussed in our previous class regarding that canonical problem with the person who left the church, and then he came and became a candidate for ordination. So what kind of pride have you been able to understand what I was reading? Was it clear? Did you follow the text of the canon?
Yes.
Good. So what is your take on pride of a neophyte? What kind of pride can neophyte have? Anyone, or Brother Evangelist, or so what is your take on this? What pride is there? Oh, well, we lost someone. So kind of I'm you know, Brother Seraphim, right? Okay, so Brother Seraphim.
Oh yes, I'm back. Sorry about that, Father. My laptop died, so I had to
Oh no.
find my cord and the whole thing.
And I'm glad that Brother Van Nalita got his headphones back. I hope they're good ones.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Father, sometimes you cut in and out for me. So could you repeat the question again for me?
absolutely, yes. Right. We were reading the second canon of the Council of
Yes, yeah. You know, I remember that, but just the question itself.
Right. So this canon cites apostolic ruling, and this apostolic ruling reads about a neophyte, about a candidate for priesthood. Let him not be a neophyte, for fears that by pride he fall into judgment and into the trap of the devil. What kind of pride is what sort of pride they are talking about? What do you think?
I think if I was to maybe kind of put my answer out there, I think they are referring to just the pride of, how do I put this? I don't know how to say it in English properly. Старчество, when you because of your you think too highly of yourself, so you start, you know, giving advice to people that may not necessarily be the right one, and because of your clouded judgment, you may lead people into слепое ведет. In other words.
Brother Seraphim, would you like to take a step at this? What kind of pride there might be?
Well, if I'm looking at Canon 2, it talks about the pride that the devil fell from. So you could say this pride that is delusional, prelist.
Right. Right.
That's probably that seems to be the pride he did the Canon's warning against. This very strong hope within yourself. This deep pride within your own virtues, with your own light, as it were. Just the same way the devil fell.
Like I know better, right? So
exactly.
I know better. Like I study this stuff, you know, and I mean when people convert, они летают и поют, right? So they run, they fly, they have this exceeding feeling. It's like being in love, right? But we know that this period, as you mentioned, and it's, I mean, if you convert this into more academic terminology, this is kind of illusion. You cannot remain all your life like that. So at some point you getting it's очарование, right? So, but ты не бываешь, кто не бывает очарован, не бывает разочарован, right? So if you are not illusion, you are not going to get delusion. And in this condition, right? So that's what takes people to contract marriage, right? Because they are really, as idealize their object, but then the in the out life starts. So what you're going to do? You're going to give up your marriage? You say, listen, that's not how I saw it. No, you toil, you work, and same is in Christianity. You, without having been delusioned, sort of, you understand that what I'm saying is not in the way that you, Brother Seraphim, say. I'm saying in positive way, right? Because this terminology is negative that I'm using, sort of. It's bad to be delusioned. But what I'm saying, if you can help me to find better English term, I will use it. But since I don't have one right away, I'm using this one. And so, but in this person, a neophyte, he, as Brother Ivan said, he can be dangerous. He can be dangerous because it's not the reality. The reality is going to happen when he sober up, and then when he start to deal with whatever day brings him to deal with. Just, hoping, remain on this, how to say, this path, going in following his Christian compass, whatever, no matter what, just staying on his 2 feet and trying to do his best day in, day out. Okay, so, and this person is not stable. He like how many converts we had in Jordanville, and how few are buried here. There are exemplary cases, like one of my teachers in Jordanville, whom I missed, who, despite he passed away a long time ago, and he was a convert, Father Isaki, and I'm convert myself. I became a Christian at the age of 17, so therefore I can speak about this. So, but again, question comes for how long you remain neophyte. It basically, I guess, depends. Another thing that we adopted in the seminary, and we haven't been that strongly observed, that we don't take neophytes in the seminary. So, and our regulation is that we're not supposed to take people who are less than 1 year after their conversion to Orthodox Christianity. Right. And Brother Ivan, I have a nice one, Nalita, for you to translate. So listen up. Отец Киприан Пыжов, right? He used to say, никого я так не боюсь, как бешеной собаки и новорукоположенного священника.
Father Cyprian used to say that he doesn't, there's no thing that he's scared of more than the бешеная
Mad dog, maybe?
mad, yeah, I guess he there's nothing he's scared of more than a mad raging dog of a newly ordained priest.
The same thing,
Exactly.
right? Kind of people feel super energetic, like, I don't want to sleep. I sort of, he gets a lot of this from services, from everything. Like, I mean, his energy pumping over the roof. But meet him in 10 years time, right? Or like whatever, like 5 years time on a parish. So therefore, in such condition, person can do all kind of things. So that, I think, how we approach canons, because they give us a lot of food for our thoughts. That's why sort of I would like us to spend more time on canons and to get into the meat of them, So I think they're so loaded. There are so many to teach us, so much to teach us. Uh, okay, canon number 3, but it will take us. You would have to live with me for another year, I guess. We'll go with this pace. So, canon number 3. The Great Council absolutely forbids any bishop, priest, deacon, or any other member of the clergy to have a woman living with him, unless she is a mother, a sister, an aunt, or any other woman completely above suspicion. Okay, that's I think one of those cases where you don't need to apply any extra, how to say, any extra aid, anything is straightforward, right? But in other suggestion about reading this canon, that issue of scandalizing is important, right? We talked about this. So it can be used in counterproductive ways, because people would cover up things, because once people would learn about those things, then uh, then they will be scandalized. That's another extreme. But remember, St. Paul himself, he pays attention about not scandalized. And the Lord says about малых сих, что лучше было бы им жернов повесить, чем соблазнить одного из малых сих. So it would be better to perish than to scandalize one of the simple people. So that is important, but again, it's straightforward. As far as I can see, I don't think we really need to look what woman is, what clergy is here, what mother is, what sister is. I don't think it's really necessary. Okay, so because that's literally what you do with canons. You literally start asking, what do I understand by this word? Do I understand this word in the same way as those who adopted these canons understood it? Okay. So number 4, it's preferable that a bishop be established by all the bishops of a province. But if this appears difficult because of a pressing necessity or because of the distance to be traveled, at least 3 bishops should come together, and having the written consent of the absent bishops, they may then proceed with the consecration. The confirmation of what takes place falls to the metropolitan bishop of each province. That's a super topical, because that's what goes on between us and Constantinople right now. What was happened to the Bishop of Rome. Basically, it really promotes collegial office, collegiality of bishops, right? That they all should make up the church, right? It's not something that bishop owes. Again, also we talk like that Christ himself, he is the one, he who's the major celebrant, he is the one who does everything in his church through the hands of his servants. And it's just another instance of this, because bishops, they come together, they pray, and they make a new colleague of theirs. But it's not like anyone particularly did a favor, anyone gave something. It doesn't. They just, Christ has been doing this through them. Am I making sense?
Yes.
Yes, Father.
So this is a canon. That's why you are here on this Monday morning, because this demonstrates one of the cornerstones of Orthodox Christianity. This conciliarity. That's how church is done. You kind of see it, right? This is how to say, you can sense it. Можно физически осязать это, как бы сказать. Вот. Because that's how church is. That's how church has been. That's since the Acts of Apostles, Apostolic Council in Jerusalem, and then from this time you see less than 300 years later, it has been proved and expressed by the Council of Nicea. Okay, so that's why the minimum. Ideally, when Bishop Luke was consecrated, all bishops with whom we are in communion, should come across and should participate, right? But because also we have all those divisions based on countries of origin, so we have this adjective, the Russian church. It doesn't mean the church for Russians, but sort of church comes from a territory which is named Russia. That's what it is. And then other names like Greek Orthodox Church and so on. But since there is neither Hellene nor Jew, your identity, your race is Christianity. That's basically how Canon sees this, right? So your race is not important. Your blood is not important. Your theology is important in your church affiliation, right? That's your citizenship, kind of. That's your passport, sort of, in sense of canons. But our reality is imperfect, and in canon number 1 regarding castrates, right, we know that sort of despite this canon in Byzantium and heavily time benefited from this. So, right, this surgery was prohibited in Byzantium, but sort of crossing south of the border in Mexico, there were border parlors, right, where you can perform the surgery and come back, right, sort of. And that's again another point for you to think about reality, that reality is utterly imperfect. And church reality is not excluded. We have a norm and we have reality, and those things, they constantly in the conflict, okay? But it doesn't mean that we should be cynical as a result of this. Okay, so I think that takes care of itself. Now, moving on, number 5. Concerning those who have been excommunicated, either among the clergy or the laity, let the sentence that was given by the bishops of each province remain in force. Let this be in conformity with the regulation, which requires that those so excluded by some bishops must not be received by others. But let each case be examined to see if those involved were excluded for a cowardly reason, from a quarrelsome spirit, or from some feeling of dislike on the part of the bishop. Therefore, so that a proper inquiry may take place, it seems good and proper that in each province there be a synod 2 times a year, so that all the bishops of the province sitting together may examine such questions, and thus those who, according to the general opinion, may have disobeyed their bishop will be properly considered as excommunicate by all until such time as all the bishops see fit to render a more merciful sentence. Let the synods be held as follows: 1 before the 40th day, so that all cowardly feelings be set aside. A pure offering may be made to God. The 2nd during the 4th. It's another very loaded canon, right? Because in the very first sentence, concerning those who have been excommunicated, they say should not be accepted elsewhere. And this is a norm on all levels. Like if somebody was received some penance, right? Received some penance, then this person is not to be received by other priests, right? What happened, for instance, there were cases when members of the Russian parishes would go to Father Ephraim's monasteries, and then they would come to their home parishes with penances, and then our bishops looked into this and they annulled those penances because there are 2 different sets of practices, right? So there are practice in the Russian churches, there are attitudes in Father Ephraim's monasteries. But even when bishops involved like that, there were protests. Like there was another case when Bishop Leonti in South America gave penance to his clergyman, and then his clergyman complained to Synod of Bishops in New York, and they found that Bishop Leonti's penance wasn't reasonable, and they annulled it, and Bishop Leonti didn't agree with this because he believed that's something that he had deal one-on-one. So, but those are extraordinary cases. By normally, if person is is not allowed to take communion, he just keeps this way, and all suggestions should be come back to whoever gave this penance and deal with this person, right? So this is also, you see, very foundational. A reminder here for you that if canons speak about something, it means there was a problem. They didn't just think around the table and throwing ideas, you know, and brainstorming. Why won't we do this? Why won't we do that? No, they didn't act like that. They really addressed pressing issues, something that was really important, of issues of importance. Another even more important issue that this sets up a norm of collegiality, of synodality, that councils should regularly assemble. It even provides a norm how often those councils should be assembled, right? And the fact that this norm could not be observed, doesn't mean that it's uncanonical. What is canonical, that there will be regular meetings of councils. That's what is envisioned. Like in the Russian church, there are every 2 years. In the Russian church abroad, about the same time, every 2 years, bishops get together to discuss matters. And in both churches, in the Church of Russia and the Russian church abroad, bishops' councils are supreme authority in the church. Okay, so that's important. Okay, now, any questions regarding what we've been talking about?
I don't got any. No.
Okay,
Not from my side.
all right.
Yeah, it's straightforward.
Okay. Okay, number 6. Let the ancient customs be maintained in Egypt, in Libya, and in Pentapolis, so that the Bishop of Alexandria has authority over all those territories. Since for the Bishop of Rome there is a similar practice, and the same things concerning Antioch and in other provinces, let the prerogatives of the churches of the capitals be safeguarded. Moreover, let this matter be completely clear. If anyone becomes a bishop without the consent of the metropolitan, the Great Council decrees that such a person is not even a bishop. In addition, if after a common vote of all has taken place knowingly and in conformity with the church regulation, 2 or 3 for reasons of personal ill will refuse the decision, then let everyone go along with the majority vote. Again, kind of, you read this canon, you take your time, you reflect, you kind of think about what does this canon say to us, and it says to us a few things. That there is voting, right? So voting is all right. And the previous canon also, what I meant to say, that it's totally okay to defend your rights in church. It doesn't mean that if somebody slanders you, unless you are ascetic or you have any reasons and so on to accept being falsely accused, you don't have to. You don't have to. You defend yourself, but you do it in a proper way. You never leave your bishops, right? Your bishop, and in the sense that if you are suspended, even for wrong reasons, you stop serving, because you demonstrate humility, you demonstrate your understanding of church discipline. But then you might ask for a word, you might ask to have a chance to explain yourself, because if you are suspended or anything done to you without giving you a chance to defend yourself, that's not right. That's a person who did it, like bishop who did it, would be himself a subject of investigation. So if something done that without giving you a chance to explain yourself and so on. Right. So here, this canon number 6 now established what is the norm now, that all churches in Africa are under Pope of Africa, which actually he started to be called Pope earlier than Pope of Rome, and he's still called Pope, right? The Patriarch of Alexandria. And also we see in the making church discipline, like it was a not grassroots movement, but it was an organized church order, in the sense that now we are also seeing strong imperial influence, because metropolis, it means mother town. And of course, those metropolises, they were connected with capitals of Roman provinces, even to the point that Caesarea in Palestine was of higher importance than Jerusalem. And of course, Jerusalem was leveled to ground zero by Adrian in the 1st century and became Aelia Capitolina. That's why the Russian church just goes after the Church of Jerusalem, right? The sort of Jerusalem is on the 4th position, and the Russians are on the 5th position in diptych and diptycha. And here we see the same making of the order, and we see that metropolitan should be part of the administration process. And in Canon 34, Apostolic Canon 34, that was very vividly expressed, that bishops should consent, should do nothing without their gross hierarch's consent. And in his turn, he should do nothing without also discussing things with them. So that's it for me. That's the best expression of what conciliarity is, what subordinacy is. And I believe this is a model for all levels, for family, for parish, for diocese, you name it. I think that it just captures this very important dynamics, how Orthodox Church operates. Right. Shall we do the last one? Shall we do this as the last one? Right. Since custom and ancient tradition have prevailed according to which the bishop of Aelia is honored, let him enjoy the honor that flows from his position, while the dignity proper to the metropolitan city is safeguarded. This is exactly what I just talked about. Aelia is Jerusalem, right? That's the name, because Adrian even prohibited Jews were dispelled from there, and so on. It's even like he took the name of Jerusalem from them, and that's what it is. Okay, so I would go for 1 other hour, but I don't think you would go for another hour with me. So you would respectfully decline this offer, as I understand. But right.